Score more with the college-branded Venmo debit card and earn up to 5% cash back with Venmo Stash. Got paid back? With the Venmo debit card, you can instantly access your balance and spend on what you want, like game day snacks, gear, tickets, and more. The more you do, the more cash back you can earn. Plus, there's no monthly fee or minimum balance. Sign up now at Venmo.com/collegecard. The Venmo MasterCard is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. Select schools available. Venmo Stash terms and exclusions apply at venmo.me/stash terms. Max $100 cash back per month.
For the News and Observer, I'm Dawn Vaughan, Capitol Bureau Chief and host of Under the Dome. It's April, and North Carolina is still under the cover of pollen dust. Up in Washington, D.C., where our Capitol Hill correspondent, Danielle Battaglia, is, cherry blossoms have bloomed and blown away, and President Trump's tariffs are the talk of the town. So obviously, like I just said, I'm joined by Danielle today. Let's get started with tariffs, and then we'll talk about the Trump impact on North Carolina. After the break, we'll talk about what Governor Josh Stein was doing in downtown Raleigh on Monday morning at a school. And anyway, back to tariffs. He's campaigned on this. He's talked about this for a long time. There was some early administration stuff, but now I feel like everything is coming down, the, ensuing panic, everything. So what's going on at this moment as we record this on, Monday, April 7th with the Trump tariffs?
Yeah, this is an issue that President Trump campaigned on. We heard it a lot throughout the campaign. It was something he said repeatedly that he wanted to do. And there's been actually great reporting by the national media showing him going back to 1992, saying this is something he wanted, I think, for business purposes back then. And so this is a longstanding issue for the president. I believe it was Wednesday of last week. It might have been Tuesday. My days get confused up here in D.C. He finally came out, had a news conference in the Rose Garden explaining these tariffs, which at a base is 10% to all of our trade partners. And then it increases depending on which country we're looking at. So the European Union has a set amount. China's got a set amount. Vietnam's got a set amount. Cambodia, there were 60 different countries listed. And so this immediately had an impact on the stock market. We've seen an immediate plunge from it. People are losing money in their 401ks. It's not been a great time for people. And the president basically said this is like taking medicine. It's going to hurt until it gets better, which he anticipates being 2 years from now.
Wow. I was watching Meet the Press on Sunday, and it seems like there are plenty of not just Democrats who obviously will oppose what Trump wants to do for the most part, but also Republicans who are like, this is not a good idea. This is a tax that is going to end badly. But where I think Ted Cruz is among the Republicans, against them. But where do North Carolina's, Republicans stand on this? Are they calling it out in opposition, worried about the economy or no?
So two of our Democrats have definitely called it out. Valerie Foushee and Deborah Ross both are very outspoken at this point on what Trump's doing. We haven't heard from Representative Don Davis, who tends to be quieter and more moderate and often votes with Republicans. So I'm still waiting to see what he has to say about this. As for the Republicans, our freshmen were very quick to get out statements that support the president and what he's doing. And so did Representative Chuck Edwards, who's a sophomore now in the House. And so we've seen a lot of that. What is fascinating to me is who we haven't heard from. So Representative Virginia Foxx, who is known to have a ton of stock holdings, she hasn't said anything, and she's pretty outspoken on the president's plans. We haven't heard from Richard Hudson, who leads the congressional fundraising arm for the Republican Party. And then you've got Ted Budd, who is a staunch Trump supporter. He's been completely silent on the issue. And so I'm waiting to hear from people like that. And then you have Senator Thom Tillis, who's been making so much news, just in general, but on this issue in particular. He has come out and said, his farmers in North Carolina are one crop away from not having a farm, basically. They could lose everything with these tariffs. But at the same time, he hasn't pushed back as much as you'd expect him to be doing, knowing that the impact on North Carolina is great. However, on Friday night, he co-sponsored a bill that would basically claw back power to Congress and at least let them see what's going to happen with tariffs prior to the president implementing them. So, there's a lot going on. He's one that you have to watch very closely. His statements are nuanced, and I believe that's because of the 2026 election, where he is trying to get both moderate Republicans and far right Republicans to vote for him.
Do you think there's something you talked about, the freshman or Edwards is now, not a freshman, but close to not that recently.
Sophomore is the right term either.
Yeah. I mean, really though.
Term.
Yeah. Do you think that it's, that those greener member of Congress need to, just like show their Trump allegiance, and maybe those that have been around longer, not just in North Carolina, but around the country, who have more clout really, can say like, hey, this isn't, going to work out so great?
The dynamics definitely very interesting to watch. And I've had that question myself. I think part of this, though, is the freshmen obviously ran on the Trump agenda and this American First policy. And I'm sorry, my dog is shaking in the background. But so, this is something he campaigned on. So therefore, they campaigned on it. I think it's a lot easier for a freshman to come out and say, I fully support this because they believe that's how they've won, than somebody who's been in office a lot longer and knows the consequences that this could have on the country.
How do you think this is really going to shift what their constituents want from them versus when, I guess like earlier in the administration, which I guess is what, only a couple months in,
We're not
a lot of
yet.
Was a lot of the anger of the, slash and burn, like Elon Musk, an elected person making all these decisions about, the federal government, where this is a totally different topic and it's people's money. So do you think that is kind of change where, maybe Democrats in general don't like anything that Trump or Musk would do, and Republicans, it depends on, their own personal perspective on it. But tariffs and taxes, and suddenly you have to pay all this money and maybe don't want to wait the years long game, which sure you can do that if you're a billionaire. But as far as, middle class, working class, people with high salaries that are worried about what this means. What do you think this is going to come down really for these members of Congress when suddenly it costs so much to buy everything?
Yeah, you made a good point. I was going to say the average American can't afford 2 years of higher payments. There was a survey there was a report by Yale that came out that said this is going to cost about $2,700 to $3,000. I think it was $500 per family. That's a lot of money. And so, when we went out and talked to people about why they were voting the way they were, like whether that at the time it was President Biden running or President Trump, they really were worried about the economy and these pocketbook issues. And they wanted to vote for Trump because he had promised to get the economy under control and to help them at the grocery store. And this is going to have a major impact on them. And I think that could hurt. President Trump is not supposed to be able to run for a third term, despite him saying he will. And so, it's not going to impact him as President Trump and what happens in that 2028 election. But where it will hurt Republicans is that midterm election. And I think Republicans are very worried right now about maintaining the House and the Senate if we are dealing right now with things that are impacting the constituents personally. And, I've heard people say they've lost 6 figures in their 401ks in the last week. That's a lot of money that they're looking at, especially if you're a retired member of society trying to survive on your retirement.
And look at, North Carolina's had a lot of layoffs lately. And then, of course, the nationally and the federal government and everything else. So people are out of work. And then also everything costs a lot more. And by the way, it's tax time, everybody. If you had just filed my taxes and the federal government just took a bunch of my money, and we'll see how yeah, show me something for it. Let's see what we get out of it. All right. we need to take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk more about like what else is going on in DC and Congress, what Governor Stein is up to this week, and of course the legislature. We'll be right back.
So good, so good, so good.
New spring arrivals are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. Get ready to save big with up to 60% off Rag & Bone, Marc Jacobs, Free People, and more.
How did I not know Rack has Adidas?
Because there's always something new.
Join the Nordy Club to unlock exclusive discounts, shop new arrivals first, and more. Plus, buy online and pick up at your favorite Rack store for free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you Rack.
It's crunch time at work, and you need to bring wings to your workday. Visit redbull.com/gettingitdone and answer a couple questions about your work style to get a Spotify customized playlist tuned to your productivity. Plus, score a can of Red Bull on us while you go from to-do to done. And remember, Red Bull gives you wings. Supplies are limited. Terms apply. Visit the website for more information.
You're listening to Under the Dome. I'm Capitol Bureau Chief Dawn Vaughan, here with DC correspondent Danielle Battaglia. Before the break, we talked a lot about tariffs. What else is going on there, Danielle, with Senator Tillis? Of course, you mentioned he's always making news, and just other congressional drama and how it affects people in the Old North State.
Yeah, DC be crazy. I feel like, you never know what's going to happen. And I should say we started a newsletter to kind of wrap this up for everybody so that you can see, because so much is happening within the Trump administration that is having a direct impact on North Carolina. We're trying to give like a single place you can come each week, and it's coming out on Mondays, where you can just find out everything that you need to know for the last 7 days and then the impact it will have. But so last week was a lot of drama, and that's going to bleed into this week. On Monday or Tuesday, I think it was Monday, House Speaker Mike Johnson sent the entire House home to their districts because he did not get what he wanted on a bill where Anna Paulina Luna was trying to make it so that new parents could vote by proxy. And he believes that this is just going to have a domino effect of other people being like, well, I should be able to vote by proxy on this or that. And they couldn't come to an agreement. He ended up losing a vote where he thought he could quash her bill. And actually, I believe it was a privilege resolution, to be clear, but he thought he had quashed it. And several Republicans jumped over and voted with Democrats to allow it to move forward. And so he got very angry and was like, everybody leave. And so they were supposed to be the House was supposed to be working on a reconciliation bill, and the Senate ended up taking it up. And this is the one you hear Trump talk about, the one big, beautiful bill. It passed the Senate Saturday, probably around 3 a.m. It's going to the House. They have to decide on it, but they can't do anything until they figure out Luna's bill. So there's been some maneuvering, negotiations going on behind the scenes to make that happen, I believe, Monday night. So by the time you hear this, there should be a response on it. It sounds like they're finding a compromise so that there can be proxy voting, but with like all kinds of regulations to make sure this doesn't get out of control. So we're waiting to see what happens there. And once that happens, they're going to take up the reconciliation bill. I'm hearing that Republicans are very unhappy with it. They think that the Senate did a lot of things in it that they're not okay with. And so, we're gonna be discussing that all week and seeing what the House ends up doing. So it'll be an interesting one.
Never a dull moment there.
No. How about Raleigh? What's going on in Raleigh this week?
Right. I'm glad you mentioned the newsletter. So we've talked on the past episode or two about shuffling around the podcast day. So we've got, if you should subscribe to the Under the Dome newsletter. If you're not, you're missing out. We have several themed Under the Dome newsletters. So on Sunday, I write about the governor. On Monday, Danielle writes about Trump. On Tuesday, it's the highlights from this podcast. And then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or a lot of just sort of a some new information, some like links to our other coverage about things going on in DC and at the legislature. So this week at the legislature, It's another like crazy full schedule with, if you're listening to this on Tuesday morning, if you're a House member on Homeland Security and Military and Veterans Affairs, you better be there by 8:30. And then it's a whole slew of committees and voting sessions, because we're really in the busy time now as we wait on the Senate to get its budget out. What's going on with Governor Josh Stein? Like I mentioned, we're recording this on Monday. This morning, I was at Moore Square Magnet Middle School. Governor Stein was there. He visited some classrooms, and he has announced this new advisory council on school safety and wellness. And that's kind of like as far as what powers the governor has. It's things like creating task force and advisory councils and this sort of thing. Notable for the legislative crossover, one of the chairs is Senator Sidney Batch, who is the Senate Democratic leader. She is new in that role, not a new senator this legislative session. And so what Stein talked about is something that, if you've noticed how his term so far has gone, is that he basically, Republicans have an idea that he likes, and he's like, great idea, and I agree. So there's a lot of sort of, getting along at this point. He hasn't vetoed anything yet. So Democrats and Republicans, there's different version in the House and Senate on this bill to regulate cell phone use in schools. And Governor Stein said this in his State of the State. He said it in many proposals, and he did again on Monday, talking about that smartphones, cell phones don't need to be in the classroom. And so we'll see what that final legislation is like. I asked him a question where I said, assuming you're going to sign this bill, he didn't say he wasn't going to sign the bill. So that's probably another bill that he'll go along with. Of course, Republicans can always shove something in there. Maybe he'll change his mind. But assuming it's a clean bill about regulating, having some sort of plan with cell phone use in schools. I feel like the studies have been out for years. Nobody's done anything. They're actually doing something. Well, they'll have some parameters in place as far as statewide. So that's what's going on. He also talked about other school safety and his what he's got in his budget proposal, wanting more school resource officers. So that is what is going on in Raleigh as of Monday. Let's move on to our picks for headliner of the week. Danielle, I'll throw it back to you first. What is your headliner of the week?
So you mentioned the cherry blossoms at the top of this, and if you were lucky enough to come before the wind blew them all away and the rain washed them all away, there were two cute little toddlers. They were older than toddlers. That's not fair to them. Older than toddler children posing with the cherry blossoms in front of the Jefferson. And who walks into the photo but former President Obama, who then commented on the photo on Instagram saying, "I am so sorry. I walked in front of this, photo shoot, and told them that he hopes they enjoyed the cherry blossom." So cute moment, cute. You don't often see former presidents tourist state in DC. So cute moment.
Yeah, I saw that in the photo. It looks like Obama's walking like he's got somewhere to go. So like scooting along, or the kids are posing, and he's like, probably, I don't know if he wanted people to notice him or not, or if he was going to some former president meeting or something. I don't know.
He looked incognito. He said he was there to be a tourist, but he looked pretty incognito. But when you see him face on, you're like, oh yeah, that's Obama. But when he's on the side, it's like, who is that? And the mom didn't notice at first. Her husband did.
I mean, cherry blossoms are pretty. And he got there before they all blew away, I guess, right?
Yep, he did. I think he was there the day before they all blew away. Everyone I know went the day they were gone.
I think everybody here would like the pollen to blow away. We've had a little bit of rain.
Too.
Yeah. So I'm going to segue pollen talk into my pick for headliner of the week. This past week was the Wake County Public Schools spring break, and I'm a Wake County parent. It's the largest school system in the state. Just a little bit bigger than Charlotte Mech, if those our Charlotte listeners are wondering about that from the last count that they did. But I took my high school junior. We went on a tour of college campuses. So all were UNC system schools aside from Duke. I'm a Duke fan. We had to tour Duke, of course, too. But it was really interesting to see in a different way, not as a reporter or just a North Carolina resident, what UNC Chapel Hill is like, what Appalachian State is like, what East Carolina is like, UNC Charlotte, NC State, and kind of a different way of looking at things. So my headliner is really the UNC system job of campus tours. I'll give a shout out to App State for giving you the freebies and the cool mountain setting. The campus vibe there is nice. So I'll leave it up to my son where he wants to actually go. So probably the one that has the major engineering school, which I'm sure our listeners can figure out which one that is. And it's not too far away. So
I can't believe we're sending him to college already.
I know. I cannot believe it either. So time. Anyway, the one funny thing that I want to mention with the pollen is that on the Duke tour, the presenter, like, for all the people that are not from North Carolina that are touring Duke, they had to mention oh yeah, there's a lot of pollen here, but we got flowers after. So we do have the flowers among the pollen. So
and warmer weather. It's 20 degrees colder here today.
It is very hot in Raleigh, but it's about to turn cold again, or it might be really as we're talking. So I think we're in fall, summer. I don't know. We'll see what the weather is next time. We have Danielle back on talking about all the craziness drama in DC. Thank you, as always, to my politics team colleague, Danielle Battaglia. I'm Dawn Vaughan for producer Laura Brache. Thank you for listening, and we will talk to you next time.
For more from our politics team, subscribe to the News and Observer at newsobserver.com/subscribe and sign up for our weekly political newsletter, also called Under the Dome, at newsobserver.com/newsletters. Thanks for listening.